It sure is a good time for handheld gaming, isn't it? The Nintendo Switch is now sitting comfortably on the best-selling gaming systems podium, Valve's Steam Deck has been doing recently well, which caused a variety of other PC handhelds to spawn in to compete with it, and in general it just feels like we now have a lot more options in handheld gaming than ever before. Though it wasn't always like this, at least for a period of time that is. It does feel nice to have a variety of options to consider in the handheld gaming space, but let's not forget that this was not at all the case only a decade ago. And that's what I want to talk about in this video, how the handheld gaming market went through a fall in the majority of the 2010s, and how the market was able to see a rise once more in recent years. But before we can talk about the fall, it's important that we bring up the initial rise of handheld gaming. The initial rise of handheld gaming had begun with the release of the original Game Boy by Nintendo in 1989. While yes, there were other handheld gaming devices before it, the Game Boy was the first handheld gaming device to be a worldwide phenomenon. And rightfully so, with an amazing lineup of games, pretty good battery life, and a design that gave the system astonishing durability. At this point, it would be redundant of me to bring up the Game Boy that survived being bombed during the Gulf War. Since I know of it, since you know of it, since we all know of it. The success of Nintendo's little gaming brick will lead to a variety of other companies hopping onto the handheld gaming market throughout the 90s to get a piece of the pie. This included Sega and Atari, who pretty much created their own versions of the Game Boy, with the twist being that they were more powerful and also had colored screens. Then there were those who decided to capitalize on the handheld gaming boom by marketing towards the poor, because that's exactly what big name toy manufacturer Tiger Electronics did by releasing a large lineup of LCD handheld games. They were not at all as good as the games that were featured on the proper handheld gaming devices. In fact, they were honestly kinda trash, but they succeeded in basically being the substitute for the real thing. Fast forward to the 2000s, where there were only two notable gaming devices to speak of from that decade, which sounds like it would be a downgrade compared to the 90s, but that can quickly be disproven with only two words with a combined total of 5 letters. DS and PSP. There were other handheld gaming devices in the 2000s, but these two were the most prominent from that decade. I guess I can talk about what made these two systems great, so let's do that beginning with the DS. I don't think many people nowadays know just how big the system was back in the day. It seriously felt like everybody back in the day owned one of these things. It had a good lineup of games, pretty solid battery life, and had the best feature in any gaming system ever, download play. Basically allowing you and 3 other DS owners to play a game together with only one game cartridge. Sure, some features may have been missing and everybody had to have their own copy of a game to get all the features inside a game, but who cares, I'll gladly play as the green shy guy in Mario Kart DS. The DS was also pretty popular among the boomers too, since there were games on there that catered to them as well. Overall, the DS was a pretty good gaming system that deserved the success that it got. And then there's the PSP. I've seen people in recent times try to downplay the PSP success, mostly because it didn't sell nearly as well as the DS and they claimed that it had a weaker game library compared to the DS. But I don't know, I kinda still like this thing. The PSP was honestly an amazing device. The games on the system featured better looking graphics compared to the DS, pretty much making it nearly a portable PS2, which was Sony's flagship home console when the PSP released, which just sounds insane. Imagine if Microsoft were to release a handheld that was as powerful as an Xbox One X right now. That's basically what the PSP was back in the day. Also, while I'm not as knowledgeable of the PSP's library compared to the DS's, the PSP games that I did play were honestly really fun. The media features that this thing had were nuts. You could play games on it, yes, but you can also watch movies, watch videos, listen to music, browse on the web, view your photos, officially play digital PS1 games. This thing was pretty much the ultimate portable media device. It felt like it could do anything. Oh yeah, and back in the 2000s, this thing was pretty much baby's first emulation system. I remember a guy in junior high who just filled his modded PSP with Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance ROMs. It was honestly really cool. The PSP was incredible and definitely deserved a lot more credit than some people gave it. Besides, 82 million is still a good number of units sold. It did better than the Xbox One, that should count as a dub. So that is what I consider to be the initial rise of handheld gaming. But what about the fall? Well, I should note that when I mean the fall of handheld gaming, I purely base it on the statistics and the sales, and not based on the quality of the systems and games. I don't really have a good name to call this time period, so I'm just going to slap the time of what I consider to be the fall of handheld gaming, 2011 to 2016. This was a time where handheld gaming systems were simply not doing as well compared to the systems of before, with the only notable gaming system during this time period being the Nintendo 3DS. Oh sure, the PSP successor, the PS Vita, did have potential of being a notable system too, but that potential was pretty much destroyed when Sony decided to pull the move of the average Dream fan's father figure and just completely abandon the PS Vita. Why did they abandon it? Well, it's for a variety of different reasons, but I'll get into one special reason later. Even the 3DS, while it did do well in sales, it just didn't do as well compared to Nintendo's other handheld gaming systems. So why was that the case? Why was this era of handheld gaming much more rough compared to the era before? Well, the companies behind these systems are partially to blame to some degree, but I think the main reason why handheld gaming suffered throughout this era was because of mobile devices. Around the time that the 3DS and PS Vita released, mobile gaming was becoming the way of playing games on the go. This sounds silly now, but there was a time when mobile games had a variety compared to each other and were honestly pretty fun and creative. The majority of the casual players who played games on the DS simply chose to not buy the successor system in favor of mobile gaming. And remember how I called the PSP the ultimate portable media device? Well, smartphones were pretty much exactly that as well, so there went a majority of the casual PSP players as well. Sony even flat out said that if people wanted to play games on the go, they should just use their phone, and they said this as a response as to why they left the PS Vita to die. And you know what? Sucks for them, because these two systems rock. The PS Vita, while it didn't get much love from Sony, it did get a lot of love from the community, with a devoted group of people who to this very day are still standing strong and proud on the PS Vita supremacy hill. Good for them, really. And I would talk about how great the 3DS is, but I've actually already made a full video about why I enjoy this system. Video in the description and on the top right of your screen, you know where to go if you're interested. So let's fast forward to 2016, where the charm and originality of mobile games have mostly disappeared by this point. Sure, there were some alright mobile games from that year, but I think it really says a lot that the 2016 Players' Choice Awards decided to give the award for favorite mobile game to Candy Crush. It was pretty much the moment where people finally woke up and realized, oh god, I don't think mobile gaming will be the future of portable gaming at all. And Nintendo came in and completely reassured their thoughts with the announcement and soon release of the Nintendo Switch. Don't think I need to say much about this thing. It had good games, it had a good feature of being a hybrid system, 125 million units sold and counting 6 years later. But it was because of the success of the Switch that we got to see more options in the handheld gaming space. We've seen a handful of PC-based handheld devices released, but the one that's currently doing the best so far is the Steam Deck. An excellent device that was pretty much the answer to those people who wanted Nintendo to release a more powerful Switch model but never did, so Valve just came in and gave them more or less the same thing. And pretty much even more of these PC-based handheld devices got released after that. Oh, but I don't like those things, they're too big for my liking, I've heard some people complain. Well, don't worry, because there are still other options. There's the Nintendo Switch Lite, the Analog Pocket for any owners of physical Game Boy games, there are emulation devices such as the Mia Mini Plus or the Retroid Pocket handhelds. Hell, you can also just get your hands on a 3DS and mod it, where you can have access to emulators, custom themes, and with the use of a certain eShop replacement, you can make one of the greatest handhelds ever made even greater. Like I said, there's just a lot more options now than ever before, and that is why I can comfortably say that we are now living in what is a new rise in handheld gaming. Let's all collectively appreciate and be happy about the handheld gaming space being bigger than ever before. And let's also all collectively laugh at PlayStation, who decided to half-ass their attempt of a handheld gaming device lately with Project Q, an upcoming handheld device that is only capable of streaming PS5 games and probably not actually be capable of playing anything on its own. It's one thing to make a product this pointless, it's a whole other thing to give it such an embarrassingly bad design. Like, I think I would unironically be less embarrassed to be found using the Wii phone than this thing.